You think you know the story of a one-legged tin soldier who fell in love with a paper ballerina. Children hear it as a tale of bravery, of toys that come alive in the quiet of night, of devotion that endures until the very end. It seems harmless, whimsical, and even tender. But what if I told you that this fragile children's tale hides something far older and far darker? What if behind the flicker of candlelight and the folded paper castle lies an echo of rituals that reach back thousands of years into an age when warriors were cast in metal not as toys but as protectors of the dead? Hidden beneath the surface of Hans Christian Andersen's 19th-century fairy tale is a labyrinth of symbols, a funerary journey, and an archaeological enigma that links a child's plaything to ancient myths of sacrifice, rebirth, and eternal vigilance. The Steadfast Tin Soldier is not only a toy, he may be one of the oldest symbolic guardians in human memory. Once upon a time, there was a small boy who received a box of 25 tin soldiers as a gift. Each soldier wore a brilliant uniform, held a musket against his shoulder, and stood tall and proud. Yet among them was one soldier who was different from the rest. He had only a single leg, for he had been cast with too little metal. Despite this imperfection, he balanced firmly and stood more upright than all the others. The soldier's gaze fell upon a beautiful paper ballerina who danced upon a cardboard stage. She seemed as delicate as sunlight on glass, one leg lifted high in perpetual grace. To the steadfast soldier, it looked as though she too had only one leg. He felt a kinship with her, a silent bond of unspoken love. That night, when the boy slept, the toys stirred. The soldier's adventure began with a cruel prank. A mischievous goblin from a toy castle warned him to look away from the ballerina. The next day, through accident or fate, the soldier fell from a windowsill, tumbling into the street. His journey led him through the gutter, into a paper boat, and down a rushing storm drain. The tiny craft carried him into dark waters, where rats threatened him and a fish swallowed him whole. By chance, the fish was caught and brought to the very house he had left behind. When the fish was cut open, the steadfast soldier once again stood before his beloved ballerina. But destiny was merciless. A child, perhaps in mischief, tossed the soldier into the fire. There he stood, melting slowly, his gaze still fixed upon the ballerina. A gust of wind carried her into the flames as well. When the fire died down, nothing remained of her but ashes, and of the soldier only a small lump of tin shaped like a heart. This is how the story is told to children, tragic yet noble, with love that endures even in destruction. The tale we know was first penned by Hans Christian Andersen in 1838, during an era when Europe was captivated by romantic literature, which often combined beauty with melancholy. Yet the story of the steadfast soldier did not remain fixed. Over time it was retold, reshaped, and interpreted through the lenses of shifting societies. In its original form, Andersen's narrative emphasized devotion, imperfection, and stoic endurance. The soldier's missing leg, rather than diminishing him, became a mark of his unshakable will. 19th-century audiences would have recognized in him echoes of war, veterans who returned maimed from battle yet still demanded respect. Later adaptations softened the harshness. Children's books of the 20th century often omitted the goblin's threat, or lessened the despair of the ending. Some versions allowed the ballerina to survive, or framed the soldiers melting as a gentle passing rather than a grim obliteration. These shifts reflect a cultural desire to shield children from cruelty, while preserving the moral of loyalty and courage. In other places, storytellers reframed the tale entirely. Soviet adaptations in the mid-20th century, for example, emphasized the soldier's unwavering commitment to duty, aligning him with state ideals of perseverance and collective loyalty. Meanwhile, in Japan, retellings highlighted the aesthetics of impermanence, aligning with the cultural concept of mononoa, the gentle sorrow of fleeting beauty. Through each retelling, one can trace how societies use stories not merely for entertainment, but as mirrors of their values and fears. The steadfast soldier becomes a vessel into which each culture pours its ideals: heroism, sacrifice, loyalty, or tragic beauty. Yet hidden within, unchanged across centuries, is a deeper rhythm. His journey through water, darkness, fish, and fire mirrors patterns older than Andersen, older than fairy tales themselves. The story seems to echo archetypes buried in myth. When studied closely, the tale of the steadfast tin soldier reveals striking parallels with myths that predate Andersen by centuries, perhaps millennia. First, the soldier's fall from the windowsill into the gutter and his perilous voyage upon water recalls the journey of Sumerian and Egyptian souls through the underworld. In Mesopotamian myth, the hero Gilgamesh sails dangerous waters guarded by death, while in Egyptian funerary texts, the soul must navigate rivers infested with serpents and hostile spirits. The tin soldier's paper boat is a miniature of the solar bark of Ra, carrying the steadfast through darkness. Second, his swallowing by a fish mirrors stories across cultures. In the Hebrew tradition, Jonah is swallowed by a great fish and emerges transformed. In Hindu tales, Matsya, the fish incarnation of Vishnu, preserves life in a flood. To be consumed by the fish is to enter the womb of death, only to be born again. Third, his final ordeal in the fire mirrors ancient sacrificial rites. Among the Norse, warriors were cremated with their weapons, believed to carry them into the next world. The tin soldier, consumed by flame while holding steadfast to his love, recalls this funerary passage. What remains is a heart of metal, a relic akin to sacred charms left in burial grounds. Through these parallels, the soldier ceases to be merely a toy. He is a mythic voyager. He is a soul who journeys through elemental trials of water, beasts, and fire, only to emerge not as a survivor, but as a symbol of eternal constancy. Perhaps the ballerina too has a deeper role. She is not only his beloved, but also the eternal feminine, the anima, the spirit guide who draws him toward union beyond death. Their immolation together mirrors myths of lovers who are joined in the afterlife, from Orpheus and Eurydice to the burning pyres of Hindu sati. When seen in this light, Andersen's fairy tale becomes a palimpsest written over with layers of myth, carrying whispers of rituals and beliefs older than history itself. In 1897, archaeologists excavating a burial mound in Denmark uncovered a small cache of metal figurines. Among them was a bronze warrior missing one leg, dated to the early Iron Age. Scholars debated whether this was a coincidence of damage or a deliberate design. Some argued the figure symbolized sacrifice. Others claimed it represented the limping god motifs found across Indo-European myth. Yet when Andersen's tale is placed alongside these discoveries, the parallels become difficult to ignore. Similar finds have surfaced elsewhere. In the tombs of the Etruscans, miniature soldiers fashioned in bronze were interred beside the dead. In Japan, Hanawa clay figures of armored warriors stood as guardians over burial mounds, marking the threshold between the living and the ancestral. Even in the Americas, excavations in Mayan cenotes have revealed offerings of small crafted figures, often bearing deliberate flaws, cast into water as sacrifices to the gods of the underworld. The steadfast tin soldier's fall into the gutter, his perilous voyage, and his eventual death in fire follow the same symbolic path as these funerary guardians. He is cast from metal, marked by imperfection, made to endure trials of water and beasts, and finally consumed by flame, leaving only a sacred remnant. Modern folklorists now argue that Andersen's story may not have been an invention at all, but a reawakening of a myth deeply embedded in European cultural memory. The soldier's heart-shaped lump of tin mirrors charms found in Viking cremation sites, where warriors were reduced to ash yet left behind metal fragments considered protective. Could Andersen, consciously or unconsciously, have tapped into this ancient current? Was the story whispered through generations, resurfacing in his pen as a fairy tale for children? If so, the steadfast tin soldier may be far older than the 19th century, carrying echoes of a forgotten archetype that once stood vigil over the dead for more than 2,000 years. On the surface, the tale is a tragic love story of a one-legged toy soldier and a fragile ballerina. Yet beneath it lies a sequence of symbols, each one resonant with meanings carried across cultures and centuries. The missing leg is more than a flaw. In myth, the limping god often carries special power. Hephaestus in Greek tradition was lame, yet he forged weapons of gods. Odin sacrificed an eye to gain wisdom. In Norse sagas, wounded warriors bore marks that set them apart as chosen. The soldier's imperfection becomes a sign of his destiny, proof that he is not merely one among many, but one who stands apart. The paper ballerina, delicate and suspended on one leg, represents not just beauty but the soul is a unattainably ideal. She is the anima, the eternal counterpart, the figure who lures the steadfast toward transcendence. She is made of paper, ephemeral and fragile, yet her grace surpasses the permanence of tin. She embodies the tension between mortal frailty and immortal aspiration. The goblin in the toy castle serves as the guardian of the threshold. In countless myths, tricksters and gatekeepers warn heroes not to look where they should not. He is the voice of taboo, the reminder that love and transcendence demand a price. The water journey is the passage through the underworld. To float in a paper boat is to risk dissolution, to entrust oneself to fate. The rats that threaten him echo demons who haunt the rivers of death in Egyptian and Mesopotamian texts. The fish that swallows him is the womb of transformation. To be eaten is to die, yet to emerge alive is to be reborn. Finally, the fire is the consummation of sacrifice. The soldier does not resist, he does not plead. He accepts his fate with dignity, embodying the archetype of the sacrificial warrior. What remains is not his body but his essence, hardened into a symbol of eternal loyalty. Seen this way, Andersen's tale is not simply about love or tragedy. It is a coded mythic ritual, dramatized through toys, preserving truths that once shaped the human understanding of life, death, and what lies beyond. The story of the steadfast tin soldier you thought was merely a sad children's fairy tale may, in fact, be something far greater. Beneath its surface lies a convergence of fairy tale, archaeology, spirituality, and ancient myth. The one-legged soldier is not just a toy but a guardian, an echo of bronze figurines placed in tombs, of limping gods who bore sacred wounds, of warriors who journeyed through elemental trials to prove their eternal strength. His voyage across water, his swallowing by a fish, his return to the house of origins. and his death and fire all trace a cycle older than Anderson, older than Christianity, older even than written history. It is the cycle of death and rebirth, of the soul's passage through darkness, trial, and sacrifice toward transcendence. The ballerina, his fragile counterpart, is more than an object of affection. She is the mirror of the soul, the eternal partner who awaits him beyond the flames. Their union in fire becomes not destruction but a final consummation, a joining in eternity. When you next hear the story of the Steadfast Tin Soldier, do not dismiss it as a quaint relic of 19th century imagination. See instead the ghostly layers of forgotten myth, the whisper of ancient rituals, and the shadow of archaeological relics buried in soil and ash. It is a story of loyalty that transcends imperfection, of courage that endures trial, and of love that survives even the fires of death. A tale that carries within it the heartbeat of civilizations long vanished, yet still pulsing in the fragile figure of a one-legged soldier of tin.